Hi folks, I'm International Master John Watson and this is Ask the Master on ICC TV, a weekly show on Tuesdays. The main idea of the show is to provide a forum for you guys to ask questions about the chess world, any kind of questions about any sort of thing. We do a lot of openings, but we also do books, training. I'm going to talk about how to practice and study this week. And you can send me your games. We've had 3 of those this week that I was sent, so that's kind of interesting, and I'll try to get to at least 1 or 2 of them. Obviously, a game takes a little longer to do. And what else is new? We have questions about tournaments that are happening, great players, history, chess history, whatever you sort of feel like. You can ask these questions in advance by email at askimwatson@chessclub.com. That's ASKIMWATSON at chessclub.com. And I'll get to all of those. You can also send me on ICC, excuse me. You can message me at John L. Watson, JOHNLWATSON. In fact, I think I'm going to check that right now. Because I was waiting for one response there on that. So I will have to I'll have to get back to that because I've got one question from that source this week. And then you can ask on the chat, and nobody is on the chat yet that I can see, but will be briefly, I'm sure. So that's sort of the overall introduction of what's going on. You can ask a question on the chat on YouTube right now, live. And please remember that you can always send questions to askimwatson@chessclub.com. It's a free lesson is one way to look at it. If you're already paying some expensive teacher, maybe you can save a little money by asking me a few questions and getting an answer. So also I should mention the indices of the show. I was getting a little bit behind on them, but they are up, listing the openings discussed and their ECO codes. That's on Facebook. So that's on my page there, John L. Watson, and L as in lion. And if you don't see it right immediately there, it's not on my home page, but on my what do they call it? Streaming page, whatever it's called. I guess it is the home page, but it's not the wall page. It's the other one. It's the home page. Anyway, John L. Watson. It's pretty easy to find. So maybe I'll just continue here. Hello, hey, we've got some people already. That's cool. Hi, everybody. Let me talk about a question I got from last week from someone who also sent a game, and I hope I'll get to that. But for sure, I want to get to this one because it's similar to a bunch of others that I've gotten. It has to do with, well, let me just paraphrase it. I really want to improve my game, and I do study, but the problem is I don't know how to study alone. So I have a lot of books and lots of videos, but still don't know what is the best method to study. Now, naturally, that's a very complicated question, and I'm not going to give a perfect answer or anything, but with my students, I give them all different assignments and different homework based on what they need to know, because I'm able to get a really careful view of their games and their strengths and their weaknesses and their level of advancements and maybe even their interests. How excited they are about studying one thing or another definitely influences me. So putting that aside for a moment, I will make a few general remarks because I think that's only fair. I get this question a lot. I think first and maybe even most importantly, something that people forget is that you should try to enjoy whatever it is you're studying. You may not have, hilarious fun doing it, but at least have it be interesting and absorbing, something that takes you out of yourself. Because otherwise it's just a chore. And if it's just a chore, you're probably not going to stick with it for very long. And also you probably won't learn as much if it's just hard work. Now it's going to be work. Some of it's going to be work for sure. But if it's only work and if it's not absorbing and interesting, you probably won't learn it as efficiently anyway. So if you're studying something and you're just think it's just like watching paint dry, think about taking another tack. For example, if you hate studying endings, don't worry about it. Study something else. Study some middle games or tactics. Or study games by great players. I know I always enjoyed studying game collections, and that was always fun for me. So if I wanted to do something and not be bored, I could always do that. But on the other hand, some people find those games boring and irrelevant and not relevant to their own game. So those people might want to study openings or end games or tactics or whatever. So, but you're going to have to put effort in, but you can pamper yourself a little bit by looking at, because all chess study is useful. Even when you're studying things that are almost incorrect, it can be useful just because you're thinking about the game. As long as you're thinking critically about the game, you'll improve. And so that's the first thing. Try and enjoy what you're doing. And if you aren't enjoying whatever you're doing, switch to something else. Try something else. Now, doing tactical exercises is always good. I think every teacher will tell you that. Tactics are problems. Calculation and tactics are major fundamental things about chess. But I did want to say that doing tactical exercises, even though I recommend doing some of them, it's nice to do a few, like the night before a tournament, for example. I wouldn't overdo it, because I find that even the students, I mean, I've had students who are actually better than I am at doing tactical exercises, even though they're fairly low rated. Usually kids, they're very sharp. And but over the board, we go over their games, and again and again and again, they miss tactics that are much easier than the ones they've been looking at. And part of this, of course, is that it's out of context. They don't know that they're in a situation. They don't recognize that they're in a situation where there might be a tactic. But that's really not all there is to it. It has to do also with just being, it's not just pattern recognition, for example. It's more an intuition for how many attackers do you have versus how many defenders do the other guy have, and how well placed are they, and what key squares are they attacking. And there's so many variables in making that kind of assessment that you really learn them by practice in games and study. And you probably aren't going to learn how to do that in the abstract by, for example, just counting attackers and defenders and hoping somehow you'll luck into the right answer. So tactics exercises are good, but you can also get your tactics and calculations improved by other means. Even studying openings, for example, because in openings you're going to run across the kind of tactics that you'll probably see actually over the board there, and you'll kind of know where they came from. You'll know where they stemmed from, and that's kind of important because that puts it in an easy to learn, easy to remember kind of context. It's a holistic game, and if you just throw yourself into a given position, even if it comes from the opening that you play and you haven't seen how you actually got there, it's surprising how that limits your learning experience. So that's one way to do it. As I say, playing over great games is another way to do it if you're studying alone. And of course, play. And when we get to play, then we come down to this question about how to get good practice when you don't have a sparring partner, you aren't going to tournaments. Let me move to the next one. I have like several suggestions, but I think something a friend of mine told me is good. We came out of the context, for me, of studying endgames. I think it's very healthy. But again, doing too many of them, you're not going to run into that many in your games, perhaps. And if you do too many of them, maybe there are limits. So I would do, if you have study sessions, I'd try to do one every study session. Just one. One that you should know, a basic one. A one that, not so basic that it's easy, but one that you need to know for your improvement in chess. And if you're really good at all the basic endings, then take some sort of end game that appears in practice and play it out against a computer. And the same thing again, an ending that you think you know, or that you should know, but you don't know, you play it out against a computer. And what my friend told me was try to play it out against a computer by setting the computer engine at about 100 points, rating points higher than where you are. Maybe a little more or less. You can play around, but the idea is you don't have to play against a perfect machine that's going to make these ridiculously subtle moves and for example, always beat you. You want to play it in sort of in a realistic, real-world kind of situation where your opponent's going to make some mistakes, where they're going to make maybe natural moves that aren't absolutely perfect, but ones that are easy to understand and cope with. And that's a good way to learn endings, and to learn anything else for that matter, is to play against a computer. Set up a position and play against a computer. So that's also true of calculational exercises. If you put them up in front of a computer and actually play them out, you're probably better off than just trying to stare at a diagram, solve the whole thing, and then look at the answer. So just being involved, doing active learning as opposed to passive learning is what that's about. Now, there's always studying openings, which tends to be fun and is directly useful for each game you play, and that's why most players get good studying openings. That's their main study, and I'm not saying that should be your main thing, but it definitely should be part of what you're doing, because it teaches you the positional ideas and tactics that you need to learn, but in an actual context. As I say, you know what moves led up to those sort of things. So Yeah, and study your own games. And maybe I'll just say, okay, so to studying openings, you probably all know quite a bit about. But one thing to do about openings I wanted to mention, since you probably know most about how to study openings, is when you play a game, when you play blitz games, rapid games, any kind of games, tournament games for sure, look up the opening immediately if you get a chance and try and learn something from it. If nothing else, you might just get one move further down the line than what you knew before. More importantly, you'll probably kind of see what you did right or wrong. So, and get some better feel for what you did. You're probably not going to know unless you look it up. You're not going to know as well anyway unless you look it up. So all the great players of history have said that you should learn to annotate your own games. I think Alan just mentioned that, studying your own games. I think not only study, but annotate. Actually write out notes to the game. They don't have to be real long or real thorough, but take critical points especially. And remember to annotate the whole game. Now, don't just annotate where you blundered a piece. A lot of people, they kind of avoid annotating their games, or they only make one or two notes because they go, well, I know why I lost, or why I won. I won because the guy threw a piece away there, or missed my attack, or I lost because I didn't see the mating attack that I had, or I didn't see the one he had that he actually played, or I dropped a piece or something. And so then the notes of the game are kind of silly in a way. It's almost as if they imply that these are students of mine, that they've played a perfect game, and they don't really need to know anything about the rest of the game because after all, they were winning. And it doesn't really work that way. If you're like me or anybody else, you're going to find that you made mistakes all game long, or small mistakes, or that you could have learned something about positions, even if you did make a pretty good move. There were other moves you might have made. It's good. You can increase your understanding of the game, regardless of whether that was the reason you won or lost the game. So annotating your own games, as every great player in history has emphasized that technique, and I think it's pretty much universally acknowledged as being a great way to think about your own game and to learn from your own games directly. And the last point my friend made about this, I'll read the chat in just a second, about this subject was about watching videos, because so many people are watching videos now online, and or from DVDs and things. And I think videos are great because a lot of people, that's the best way they can learn. Sometimes it's just they don't really quite have the energy to learn. It's a fairly simple way to learn, and it's visual, and it's pleasant, and it's, so it's a good way to absorb material anyway. But there's sort of a warning against now watching online games, for example. Like, it doesn't really matter if it's one of the best grandmasters in the world talking about his blitz games, because you could watch 500 or 1,000 of these blitz games, and I'm not sure how much you'd improve by just watching those games and seeing what the person says about them, unless you're just a magnificent learner and you're very alert. And that's, again, the difference between active and passive study. You want to be as active as possible. Somehow, in all the studying you do, it's important to make moves yourself. If it's just writing down the moves, just entering them into ChessBase or something, putting them down on a board, just keep your hands moving, and you'll do a lot better, because you need to incorporate what you're learning with something you're doing, and preferably, and that was the point about playing against a computer, for example, playing out positions on a computer with a computer, or of course ideally going to a lot of tournaments. But we're talking about studying alone and how to handle that. So that's a start. You might want to go back and look at those again and think which ones apply to you and which ones you agree with. But some of the video things you could study, you might think you're learning more than you are. This kind of an illusion. Some great player is telling you, this is the reason you're doing this, and this is why you're doing that, and look at this, and just play this way, and all will be great. And that's good. I'm glad we have that around, and it's certainly part of learning, but be a little careful about depending on it too much, because what happens is you get over the board, and there's one move that's different, and all of a sudden that thing the guy said doesn't seem to apply quite correctly, or you think it applies and you make the same move and you're lost. So you've all experienced this, I'm sure, but just try to do as much thinking of your own as you're studying, and not just count on the thoughts of others. Okay, let me take a quick look at the chat, and then I've got some games people sent me. We might just move into those. Okay, let's see. Natomiyachi, yeah, I think he's great. What happened to him? He's playing really, really well in a couple tournaments, but he's always been great. He's been getting better. I feel like he's always been a great player, and he's well, okay, he's in the top 10 right now. That happens to everybody. Good point. Okay, so Tom Smith says, what happened to hey, you're worse than I am. That's Nepomniachtchi. We talked about the pronunciation before, and it's impossible to spell it or pronounce it, I guess. But it's a good question. He was barely over 2,700 for years. Of course, 2,700 meant more back then than it does now, and now he's in the top 10, crushing everyone. Well, I think to be fair, he's only been in the top 10 just recently, crushing everybody, um, and just for a few tournaments. But I think he's always had the talent, and he's on a roll right now. He's in high confidence, and I've always loved watching him play. And I would say he's slowly but surely gone up, hasn't he? I mean, maybe he was stuck at, whatever, 27 to 10 for a while or something, but since then he's had a lot of good tournaments. He's been allowed to play in a couple of major tournaments with some really high players. Before he wasn't really able to play the very top players. I think that helps too. Um, but I'm glad you brought attention to him, because the great thing about him is he's fun. His games are fun. He's fun to watch. He's really dynamic. Most people would tell you that's why he hasn't been a better player. In fact, universally, that's what people would say. He takes too many chances. It's a little bit too loose a style. He plays speculative attacks. You can't really be at the very top that way. That's the answer that everyone would give you. And I think he's kind of proving them wrong, because he's still being pretty speculative, and he's still being pretty aggressive. I wouldn't say that he's become much more professional suddenly. Now, other people might disagree with me. It may be that subtly he's playing a little more solidly, or with a little more control over the position, and that's all that's going on. But I just think he's matured as a player, and is playing really well. And yeah, 70 in the last 6 months. That's interesting. So Tom Smith says he went up 70 points in the last 6 months. Yeah, but that's how many tournaments? One of those tournaments, I think he went up about 40 in, and just recently, maybe not in one tournament, but in one of the rating list jumps, he went up almost 40, didn't he? 30 or 40, and then maybe another one just like that. So I'm not sure how many games we're talking about overall, but yeah, no, I mean, I guess I'm agreeing with you mostly. He's definitely doing better. We'll see if it's permanent. That's always an issue, whether because some people do, rise up really fast and then fall down again. And I'm hoping not, because I enjoy his play very much. You might say, are you a fan of his? Do you like his play? Because I think it's just so much fun, and that applies to how he was playing 5 years ago too. It's not as though he's become a even more fun player. He's just remained a really good player to look at the games of. Shows you that you can be enterprising in chess and still get away with it. Okay, Shirov versus Rapport 22 win. Well, I don't know. What are we doing? Rapport got destroyed, but we're not talking about him, right? Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. Something about Rapport and Shirov. Shirov won a nice game against him in this latest tournament. I think Shirov is undefeated in this tournament. He's 4-0 in this recent tournament. Big fan. Good for you, Tom. Me too. I just love the guy. It's great. I do think it's a very loose style, and it's a very risk-taking style, and that hasn't been paying off. The age of Carlsen. You look at these guys; they are all so careful. Even someone like Hikaru Nakamura has turned into a much more technical player than he used to be. Well, he was always pretty good technically, but he's just more cautious and careful. Karyakin used to be rather an attacking player. Now he's just very, very cautious. Kramnik's cautious. It's just hard to play that way. It takes a lot of energy. It's risky, but thank God there are people who can do it, and they've been successful with it. Okay, let me show you a game someone sent me, because I don't want to just chat away without rewarding the people who sent me games and talked about them. Here's one. He says, this was the most interesting game from a recent tournament. I was white. I would appreciate feedback on any aspects, but in particular is wondering what I could do out of the opening. I would say moves 13 through 22 or so. Black was solid. I failed to do much and lost the initiative. Where on the board should I be playing, and where should I be looking for a plan? Also, did I miss any winning chances later in the game when I had pressure on the d5 knight? So great question. I think when you send games, it would be nice if they kind of came with a question that other people could relate to. And this is a perfect example, because it's a standard structure that you're going to see a lot as your chess life continues. It starts out with a Sicilian. You might say, well, I'm not always going to get this, but look what it turns into. So it's a Paulsen Sicilian, and makes that move. Now, sometimes bishop b4 is critical, by the way, just for a theoretical point of view. But queen c7 became popular a few years ago, and it's probably the most popular move now. Sometimes, by the way, white plays this move queen d3. I think we mentioned that in a Carlsen game. b6. So black just keeps developing. He's going to fianchetto and attack this pawn, and white just keeps developing. And now he turns it into a really hedgehog. This structure here, with these two moves in particular, is called the hedgehog. The idea of putting the pawns there is to stop knights, especially, or any other pieces, from getting in on any of those squares. So the first point of a hedgehog is a defensive one. The other idea is that if white starts attacking in a position like this, you notice it's very Sicilian-like, but it's also English opening, which is English opening-like, which is where many hedgehogs come from. They come from c4, c5, and then white eventually plays d4, takes. So you get this kind of thing. The other thing is that when white advances, black's pawns are well placed. You have 2 against 1 in the center, as you do in most Sicilians, all open Sicilians. So 2 against 1 is a big advantage. What you don't have, of course, is development, terrible development, all in the first row, and you don't have any space. You don't even have anything on the 4th rank. You have some things on the 3rd rank. You have nothing on the 4th rank. So that's the trade-off. The 2 against 1 is the key to the Sicilian. These 2 pawns against 1 is what's going on in the Sicilian and the hedgehog. That's what gives you the chance to make up for your lack of space and development. Okay, that's just a side comment. So everybody will understand what's going on. I think the order here is a little funny, but I'm not going to talk about that. These are just sort of normal moves. White's getting his pieces out, black's getting his pieces out. Now that pawn's attacked, so white defends it. Black plays. And what I should mention here is this knight coming here is what really makes it a typical hedgehog line. If the knight goes here, that can be a sort of a hedgehog, but it offers a lot of other possibilities. And I should just say that this knight, if it was back here and it went to this square, it's so well placed on d7 that very often you'll see in this exact opening actually the knight come to e5 and then back again to d7. So normally you'll want your knight on d7, not on e5. Okay, so black just keeps developing. Now here's a problem with the hedgehog in the Sicilian defense and in this particular order, is that white manages to get this move b4 and exclamation point, good move. So white's playing very well in the opening. Why do I say that? Because in the English, often you're stuck with having this pawn here. And this kind of position over the years has proven to be pretty decent for black. He usually puts one rook here, maybe the other rook here, maybe brings the queen back, maybe brings the bishop back here and then fianchettos it, or even brings the bishop back to d8 and c7 sometimes. That's a strange line, but it sometimes works. Okay, but with the pawn on b4, white's got an idea, and one of the questions that I was given here was, what's white's plan? Well, you found the plan in a way already, so this is good. You've got the right idea. Okay, so black just brings a rook over, that makes sense, and the queen might want to snuggle back there. So white plays queen e1. Now queen e1 is fine, there's nothing wrong with it at all, because the queen wants to go to a dark square over here. I think f2 is a really good square. It's been played a lot, of course. All these moves have been played a lot. And because you're going to be playing on the queen side, to answer your question, I think the queen side is the main target here. But you might also go to g3, as you did in the game. Let me just say that if you want another plan right away, a very good plan is to simply retreat the knight and then play for a4, a5. And that's why these lines with b4 are so much better than lines with b3. It's very hard to stop that move. And once you stop that move, then no matter what he does, you're going to get the a5 square for your knight, and you're going to isolate that a pawn. That's the idea. So unless you have a break here, like sometimes d5 is a break, unless you have a break here, a pawn break, or some other counterattack, really fast counterattack, you'll find that this is almost always good for white. Just for example, if he plays here as he did in the game, not a very good move, but anyway, white plays there, he's got some pressure there, he's threatening to take that, and then maybe even play c5 or knight a5 followed by c5. And this kind of position is just great. You're trying to get 2 bishops here. If the bishop retreats, then that pawn is hanging. What you play here exactly, I'm not sure, but you can build up. You can bring your pieces to the center again now, or you can try to attack directly. Maybe a move like this. Pretty soon this idea of c5 and this pawn hanging, you can just see that white's much more active here and has black has a big weakness. So this would be a considerable advantage for white. So that's the first answer, is to play this move knight b3. Now in response to that, he probably should play more carefully than I had him playing there. For example, let's get this out of the way so that at least if I play a5, you might have d5. counterattacking here. I suspect white's better here too. No, I didn't make any notes about this, but I think you'll find that this is also good for white anyway. Well, just for example, I don't know, can you get away with that move? It looks like you can, which would be, you know, a protected passed pawn here. It's very hard to see whether this is going to work or not. I think it is. It looks like it works. But you'll have to check that out. You'll have to check that out and see how that comes out. It's close, actually. Maybe this isn't so great. Let me think what else you could do here. Okay, hang on. This position here, maybe you want to take something first. It could be this is okay for black, which means that a5 was premature after queen b8, and you should go back to either the plan you already talked about, you know, this kind of thing, or queen d4, or... But anyway, that's the plan you can try. And if you feel like things are happening too fast for black, that's too committal, you can always wait. You can make the moves like you made. You can play king over. You can play even a3 just so that d5 never attacks the b4 pawn. But I think knight b3 is a good move, and I think what you did was fine too. What you did was this, queen e1. For some reason I'm not getting it. Hang on. Oh, I see, because it was here. All right. Queen g3. Now I like queen f2 better because, again, after queen f2, now this time knight b3 is really starting to look effective. For example, if he comes back here, now we're going to have knight a4, and you can't even protect that pawn. There's no way to defend that pawn. So, I mean, you could try to counterattack, but this time it's really going to all work out for white. I can almost guarantee you. Just see what you might even try. That's too hard. Even the bishop, once it gets in there, is going to go to that square. And c5. This is just very strong. So he'd have to try something else here. But this looks like a very nice position for white. This has been known for a long time. These kinds of positions favor white. And a4, a5 is a threat. And even this is a dangerous move. Probably not a threat yet, but a dangerous move. And there's also these ideas of this knight d5 stuff coming. For example, if the bishop comes here to stop knight a4, then probably knight d5 is a good move already. Probably a very, very good move. Because if he captures it, then all these squares are falling apart on the queen side. And by the way, that pawn's hanging too. So white's just going to win that position. And if he doesn't capture it, well, he has to capture it because the bishop's hanging and the queen's hanging. So that shows why this move rook fd8 is not really right. What black always plays in these positions is rook e8. It adds more pressure down this file, but it protects the bishop so those knight d5 tricks don't work. And it gives black, as it turns out, a lot more leeway. Okay, so this is all fascinating stuff. This is good to know. You're going to get this from a variety of different openings, by the way. Okay, so now white has a little threat and black misses it. Black plays a bad move. Black should play, again, this move. He needs to protect that bishop, and here's why. What white should have played now is simply this move. Attacking the queen and attacking a whole bishop, which will then attack a rook, because it's with check. So that has to be taken, and then look at this move. Threatening mate, threatening check, taking here. Bishop retreats, and now there's probably a couple ways to win, but this is the way to really, well, not win, but this is the way to get a big advantage. Attack the queen has to move, and now probably just play check, check, take, so you're getting plenty of material here. And white has space, white has, and black's minor pieces are really weak too. Like just for example, I don't know, let's say black gets rid of that or something and gets this back. It's not overwhelming material. It's 2 pawns and a rook for 2 pieces. That might be okay for white, except look at white's pieces. They're all, look at his rook, look at his 2 bishops. Just tremendous scope, you know. Look at black's bishop running into granite. Look at this knight, it's going nowhere. Look at this knight's restricted by the pawn, and this bishop is restricted by its own pawn. So white is definitely winning this position. Okay, let's keep going here. We got any comments? You guys can keep chatting here. I just want to show you what's going on here. This is one of your fellow viewers' games. So white did miss that in terms of your plan, but I would say that's not really a thematic plan. That's something he could have stopped by playing rook e8. So really the queen probably should be here, and if he'd made the right move, rook e8, then you might even want to just reorganize by playing back again. Or by playing, yeah, and playing for this a4, a5 idea, this knight b3 idea. And you'll find you have the advantage in this kind of position. Okay, so anyway, the game went like this. The queen's kind of, now White, I think it's good that you asked me what your plan was and why you were a little confused about why you didn't get much of a plan. This has a nice possible threat, this attacking idea, which might work or might not. But that's it, really. It's kind of a one-move threat. The rest of your pieces are aimed at the queen's side. So really, this queen probably is a little bit isolated over there on the king's side. So I don't like this plan very much. It's not terrible. You made his knight go back. That's a good sign. But the queen is not going to participate in the queenside attack now. So now you make a good move, but it's sort of a mix and match thing, right? You're not mixing and matching. This queen over there now should probably just come back. And that was a good move. Can't hurt to get on an open file and help to prevent that move. And that was an interesting move because black was about to play d5, attacking this pawn. I think you could have probably done other moves, but bishop f4 is interesting. There's nothing wrong with that. I think best of all was probably just, well, maybe defend this first since d5 is becoming a threat, and then bring the queen back into play and play the plans we talked about before. Okay, now I'm not going to talk too much about the rest of the game because we'd be here forever. So let me just look at this for a second. That turned out to be a mistake, knight a4, just because it loses time, because now the knight has to retreat. Okay, so that was a good move, knight g6, and this is a mistake, but it's a mistake for tactical reasons. He should come this way anyway and aim that way still. And who knows, maybe you're better anyway, although now black's got an awful lot of extra moves in, so he's probably okay here. Might even be able to get this move d5 in, which he's been trying to for a long time. But here's the real problem. There was just a mistake, which I'm sure you realized, which was that move, which looks kind of anti-positional, but there's a real problem. That's a huge threat. It's very hard for the queen to get out of the way here. That would win the queen, basically. So white needs to get out of the way, and that allows the knight to come in. And now black could simply get the bishop pair and weaken all these squares on that side of the board. That's a good move, for example. Thinking about playing here, thinking about b5, and black's simply better here. Didn't play that. Played here, b5 first, which really isn't as good, although it wasn't terrible. I think black still might be better. Maybe not, actually. Okay, so the way this game went, and I'm just not going to talk too much about this now, is that black, just to show you this though, black's free move in the Sicilian is d5, and guess what? He just got it, which opens up this bishop and uses the 2-to-1 center. Now it's a 1-to-0 center because that pawn's going to have to be given up. And black's simply better here. There just aren't any fancy tactics here for white, as it turns out. There are a lot of things to try, but this ends up being good for black. Didn't play that. Played here. And the only question was later on whether white could have gotten something. And I don't think he really could have. So maybe I'll just show you the moves really quickly here. Black won a pawn here. Okay, so black's still much better now. White didn't have to allow that. And let me see here. Yeah, I think I'm going to pretty much stop there instead of showing you the whole game. It was drawn, and fairly so. White defended very nicely, and black gave back the pawn at some point. Like right now, black's still doing extremely well. But white defended very tenaciously, and that was cool. Got his pawn back temporarily anyway. Yeah, okay. And I don't know how this all worked exactly. Maybe black's still winning, maybe not. But I think white's very close to being equal now. Oh yeah, because he penetrated with the queen. And things went back and forth, but eventually this was drawn. So very nice game. Thanks very much, and incredibly instructive. That middle game is very, very instructive. I hope you got a few tips out of it. What books do you primarily recommend for improved understanding of essential pawn structures? We've had this question before, and someone mentioned that recent book. Oh, if you go back and look, another chatter mentioned a book on pawn structures, a fairly recent book on pawn structures. You might Google chess pawn structures. There's an older book by, there's a lot of famous pawn structure books. There's Soltis's pawn structure books from the old days, which are maybe a little bit out of date by now. I like to talk about a lot of pawn structures in my books, and my Mastering the Chess Openings has a lot of pawn structures. But of the books that are specifically, okay, now Alex Baburin wrote a classic called Winning Pawn Structures, but it's really just about isolated d-pawns. For some reason, I'm off the chat now. The chat has stopped temporarily. Have you guys got that too? You might want to send me a chat if things have been cut off for a second. I don't know how that happened. I hope that hasn't happened to you. You might want to send me something. Let me refresh my screen here. Oh, there I am, I guess. I think it's still on. Yeah, so there's Alex Burburn wrote something called Winning Pawn Structures. It's a great book, but it's just about isolated D pawns. What about some other structure books? Anyway, there's one fairly recently that people say is very good, and I haven't looked at it yet. But you might want to look at recent games by the major publishers, recent books by the major publishers, or even just Googling pawn structures and chess and see if you run into this. One of them is called something like Essential Pawn Structures. My background is falling apart here. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what's happening here. Pawn Power in Chess by Kamaga. It's just out of date, that's all. It's okay. Thank you for saying that the stream is okay. I'm having problems with my own. Yeah, here you can see I'm trying to adjust the screen. I'm on a delay, by the way. It looks sort of reasonable. Oh my God, here I am, the giant. The giant steps out of the seat. There's my skeptical look. I get to see myself with a delay here. All right, well, we'll try that. Okay, so should we do another game? I will next, by the way, next show, I will look at my pawn structure books. There are quite a few of them. I'm missing one that I used to really, really like, and it makes me mad that I can't remember it now. Not Morozevich, but one of the authors' names who begins with M. Not Marin, not Marjanovic. Someone wrote a very good book, I thought, on pawn structures. You'll also learn your pawn structures just from good opening books. Good opening books will teach you your pawn structures. Pawn Power and Chess is kind of a crazy book with all of its leukopenia and all these other strange vocabulary references. As the oops in response to the crazy things that I'm doing here. I think we've stabilized. Okay, let me just keep going. I can't believe this. I've got all these things to catch up from, and I haven't done any of them. Oh, I wanted to talk about that C4. Let me do that. That C4 game thing that I was asked about last week. It turned out to be much more interesting than I thought. I thought I better answer that. I didn't give that good. Somebody asked me on the chat about this, and about C4 D5, and I talked about this move, and I talked about this response. So I've got a little game with that. But I think more importantly, what I realized is, wait, if you just play this, you're in what's called the Marshall defense to the Queen's Gambit. And I think that's pretty good for white. If black plays this now and white plays here, okay, this is not so easy because the pawn's attacked. And if the pawn advances, black's got a nice outpost. And if the pawn is defended, naturally like that, then you run into this move. The tactical justification for which is check and knight G4, and this is considered okay for black. However, as I point out in various places, and I think even on this show, if you play this move first, there's no E5. And now we really are threatening E4. And this position simply favors white. So, and this is in my Mastering the Chess openings and some other books too. It's in my Strategic Opening Chess Repertoire book too, if you want to take a look at that. But basically the only way to stop this move, E4, is that, and then you have queen here attacking B7 and D5. There's even the point that very soon you can play a move like either knight D2 or even the other knight back to D2, and there's no stopping E4. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there, but that's really the way to play that. The only thing I could think of that I didn't mention there would be that black might gambit a pawn anyway, which is probably kind of silly, but maybe not that silly, because you still got a fair amount of activity. And then you want to play E5 next, no matter what, for example here. And I think maybe the easiest thing for white to do now is just try and get a small advantage, because black does have a lot of development here for his pawn. So just play something like that. And if black plays here trying to get his pawn back, you just play bishop E2. And ultimately, you know, you're either going to win the B7 pawn. It's hard for him to get his pawn back. I think the best line would be something like check and just castling. And maybe something along, let's see, what do I have here? Oh yeah, something along these lines. And here, instead of trying to take this back, maybe just something simple like that, because now you have two bishops, Okay, now you've given away both pawns, so he's back to equal material, but you have the bishop pair raking the queen side. And this kind of position, you always have pretty good winning chances. So this is a fairly simple way for white to play against c6, which, by the way, I can't find any games with. So it's really quite a funny thing, this question, because there's tons of games from this position, but no one ever seems to play c6. Anyway, the game, many people have played this, which is what I suggested last week, and then I talked about the fact that I thought black didn't have sufficient compensation in this position, but I'm not that sure. It turns out these games are very, very close. I actually think that, yeah, now this move bishop b5 has been tried, and it actually doesn't seem to work that well, so I'd rather just develop. This is, I think, the best way for white to play. If he plays slowly, remember I said I didn't think that black had enough of the standard control over d4 to make up for a whole pawn, because he's not that far ahead in development. Well, I may have been wrong. I mean, it's very close to enough anyway. I think the best move for white is that, stay active, even though it allows black to pin. Now you can, yeah, the game went h3, and I think that black can even play this way now. Oppose that bishop. These doubled pawns don't really hurt because you've got a file, you have queen d3 ideas, knight b4, d3, all kinds of compensation. So this c4, d5 idea is pretty cool, actually. I do think, though, that white can simply castle and allow this bishop g4 move, which is really kind of the point for black. And after that, just play like this. You can also play bishop e2. And probably black's going to go back. I think here you have the bishop pair. He has this wonderful outpost, but your pawn, white's, full pawn up. And that's just doesn't seem enough to me. Anyway, I don't think I'll do too much more of this. Let me just show. Oh yeah, so I do a long thing where black tries to sacrifice a piece here, and I think white comes out slightly better here, but I won't make a big deal of that. But it shows how this whole thing can be kind of fun for black. Black can do all kinds of interesting things and get some play. I think the real kicker here is this stupid transposition to the queen's gambit. That's what really hurts you, is this move. And usually black will take that and then this. And this is just not a very good position for black, in my opinion. Thank you very much, Tom Smith. Perfect. Chess Structures, and we said this in an earlier show. We talked about this. A Grandmaster Guide by Mauricio Flores Rios. I hear it's quite good. Mednes has done some things on pawn structures, but not whole books really on pawn structures. Good question, though. Mednes certainly talked about pawn structures in the endgame. I should be able to get this, but I probably never will. Here we go. Yes, thank you. And that is the book I was thinking about. And you might want to take a look at it. I have enough recommendations of that I'm sure it's not a bad book. And there are some other books that actually have pawn structure in the title, but they're usually a little bit disappointing. I think there's one called Essential Pawn Structures or something like that. But yeah, give this one a try if you want to see a book, and I'll try to look more carefully for next week to catch up on that. What else do we have? Okay, here's another game someone sent. I just want to get through a few of these because I'm now up to actually 5. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to show them all, but I'll show a few of them anyway. Let me do this one. Yeah, we'll try this. Okay. So the viewer is black here. By the way, I'll use your name if you want me to, but if you don't tell me to use it, I'm not going to, because I'm assuming that people might care about privacy. I have to make the conservative assumption that you may not want me to use your name. So include when you send things to me in anything, questions and or games, just tell me if you want me to use your name, because I'm obviously happy to. Okay, so this is sort of a standard thing to do in the French. This is a standard French advanced variation. And we're still in my book, for example. And that's a kind of a slow move for white, although it's a good solid move. You notice that it stops e5 because takes is going to attack the bishop. So white tries to play aggressively, but white's behind in development. So bishop d7 is definitely not the only move there. One thing you could do here, for example, is play this move, because remember, you want to get out of the way. You want to be able to play there without having the queen be attacked. But it also tends to discourage white from castling. And if white plays the knight out now, you have this move attacking the knight and attacking the bishop with check. So it stops knight c3. It's a preventative move too. So that's quite a good move, I think. As it was, you developed a piece. It's never going to be bad to develop a piece. And now here's a key position. This is a very interesting position. There's plenty of ways you could play. You could play here right now, for example, with the same old idea about playing here. Now, how would you do it this time? Actually, does this work? Yes, it does work. You can still play knight here attacking this, because if knight out attacking the queen, you just take that. You're just winning. So you win a pawn if he plays knight c3. It's good because if the knight can get to here and here and here, that can be a little bit difficult. So rook a8 is a pretty good move. You played rook ae8. Now I think here a very good move is something all French players should know about, which is this move. This is your worst piece, this bishop, and now it's going to come to a very active square where it's going to help in your kingside attack. You've got an open file, you have pieces aiming that way, and you can have more pieces aiming that way in a second. So I think bishop e8 is a good move. I could show you some lines. The idea is bishop h5, and if he tries to stop that, he's really got to watch out for sacrifices. This kind of thing is extremely dangerous here, because the king is so exposed. And you've got 2 pawns for peace already. The best move now is usually to bring the queen over. I think I even analyzed this. Did I analyze this? The best thing to do usually is to bring the queen back, yeah. And then try to get the queen here or here. And maybe then bring the rook up for the attack. And if he plays this, for example, then I think queen h4. This would not work, would it? Oh, just bishop here. This is also a weak pawn, so you could get 3 pawns for a piece. And look what's going on here. Queen g5 check is a big threat. I suspect black's already quite a bit better. I did glance at this briefly, and it seemed to be true even by the computer. Not surprising. So anyway, that's a thought for something for you to play, and it makes me think that white's whole setup is just not very good. You played logically to get e5 in, but on the other hand, you're not going to get e5 in as long as that queen's there. So maybe that's a little bit slow. Okay, knight comes out, good move. Queen comes back, good. It's not doing anything on the queen side anymore, so that's a good move. And the knight gets out. Now normally, okay, bishop comes out first. I don't know how good these moves are, but let's just kind of keep going here. Bishop comes back to oppose this very good bishop and get rid of white's theoretically bad bishop. So that's a good idea, good standard idea. White tries to sneak over to the, black tries to sneak over to the king side. Certainly playable. This is getting in the way a little bit. It'd be nice to play either queen e8 or bishop e8. And white moves forward. And his comment is that the game's about equal at this point. That might be true. Could be that white's just slightly better. Oh, and then black blunders. But it's a fascinating middle game. I mean, this is very interesting to see how to adjust all of these pieces. Right now, what should black do instead of that? It's not that easy. I don't really like, I think the knight coming back didn't really work out very well. So these rooks are kind of getting in each other's way a little bit. So I think white's just a little better here. Black, as it turned out, blundered here and allowed this. But let's just look at the end of the game, because it was fun anyway. Okay, so this looks horrible, because if he takes back, he's not losing not only a whole piece, but he's losing a rook. It's going to be a whole rook in the end. So he tries to just move the queen. Okay, so the rest is just sort of junk time. But somehow, and this is fun. It's fun that there's some saving lights for black. White plays this knight takes d5 move. All you really have to do is just take back, and you're just winning this game. White's got too much material, basically. It's really pretty easy. And bring the queen up here, for example, something like this, and just bring your queen up, and you've got this idea, and rook's coming over. But white tried to get fancy, and black found this nice idea, which is to give up the queen, and that really worked out well. So this is a nice game because he managed to fight back. It just shows, don't give up. Whatever you do, just keep fighting. And now white should play, according to me, okay, black played here, and white should play g3, or instead he plays there. And he says, after bishop b5, I see a draw. So the game ends attacking the queen again, and now we have perpetual check. Okay, now it turns out that it's even better than that, because black could play Let me just see. Yeah, right here, I think black could simply take this because that's a lot of material. I think black's got tremendous winning chances. 2 bishops and an attack. Yeah, there's one check here, but that's just a check. And I don't know what exactly you play here, but probably just here. And the thing is, these bishops are so strong, you can afford to lose a few pawns. He probably grabs another pawn, doesn't he? I imagine. And but the king is exposed, so this is probably going to be a win. Maybe some bishop move threatening checkmate, right? Do we have bishop a6? Or bishop maybe here, with the idea of going here. Threatening mate, and if check, you just move because you can't take this because of mate. Well, anyway, who knows? This could go on forever, but I think black has all the attacking chances and winning chances. Great game, interesting game. It was fun. Good comeback, good fighting comeback, giving up the queen there. And the opening was interesting. I think black was quite a bit better. Okay, so that was fun. What do we have here? Okay. Hi, Eric. Interesting line. Madness from opening to endgame. Yeah, sure. That's the endgame structure book, and yeah, it's always fun to read. It's an old classic. Let me just see. No books concerning the Moscow variation of the Sicilian. I think there's actually quite a few. There's one that's bishop b5 generally. It includes bishop b5 check and bishop b5. I think there are actually quite a few. Let me show you what that is, by the way. Seems to me I've seen quite a few books about this. Unfortunately, I'm not a Sicilian. I don't teach anybody this. Well, actually, I do teach people the white side of this, so I should know this. Now, let me think. Who? Maybe someone can toss this in, but there are books on this. I know there's a bunch of videos, but I think there's books too. Someone wrote a bishop b5 book with bishop g5 check. I think there's a German book on this. Actually, there may be more videos than books. There's quite a few videos on this. And there's quite a few people who suggest this as part of their repertoire for white, inside of a white repertoire book. This is very common. 2 of my students play this for white, actually. Once again, though, I'll have to look this up to get the exact books, whole books. I'm not sure about their whole books on this. There was an old book by Chess, one of the Italian companies, that was a notationless book on bishop b5 check, but that doesn't really count. Oh, any luck? Anybody? Anybody else got an idea for who's written a bishop b5 check book against the Sicilian? A lot of people have recommended it. It's certainly in a lot of books as a recommendation. Whether there's whole books on it, I have to admit, except for that old Italian one. And there's a German one. I'm sure there's a German one that I've seen. But it's also rather old, so you may be right. There may be no current books on it that are particularly up to date. But I would also look at videos. There's a bunch of videos around. So it's a fun line. Okay. Okay, maybe we should just move on here. Let me see. I have a French exchange question, and here's another game. Someone sent me a really funny game, explaining partly to explain what he meant. If you remember, the question about orientation on the board was asked before, and I was asked it again. And I probably didn't give a very good answer to it because I didn't really understand it. The question was about the person has problems with orienting moves backwards and forwards on the board, basically, and backwards moves are confusing him. And this was supposed to be sort of an example, I guess. And here White played this horrendous move, even though it all looks very, very innocent. But White played this move. And this is an example of missing sort of a move from that he's looking at from the other side of the board, winning a piece. Now we've seen several other versions of winning this piece, and you shouldn't be embarrassed about this one at all because it happens constantly in various other openings. We saw one just the other day, the Trompowsky, right? Yeah, just the other day we looked at one of these here, and White just innocently plays here without thinking and loses a piece to that check. So that was funny that you sent that. Thanks for showing us that, because it's so much fun to realize that this theme comes up so often. Caro-Kann, I think there's one I was thinking about. Oh yeah, advanced Caro-Kann is an interesting one, where you get that in a slightly more serious context, I guess, which is this kind of thing. Now the exact order I might get messed up with. Oh, I know one of them. One of them is actually you play it in a funny order. You play okay, here's a Caro-Kann. I don't know why I got that wrong to begin with. Playing this move first here, and then after this move here, and after this move. Yeah, now here in this position, see, now he hasn't played bishop f5. The idea is if you played bishop f5, you had other themes, but now you've committed him to bishop g4, so you go back to this. And then black has to be a little bit careful, because if he plays things like here and here, and you take it, he's got to be a little careful. He better not take back because of check. And actually, that's a theme that comes up several times in this variation. There's a Grob defense where that happens too. Oh, I'm going to go on forever with this. But anyway, that's something you just have to keep your eyes open for all checks, captures, and forcing moves every move. That's what I tell all my students. Just look for all the checks before you make your move. Make sure there isn't a check. Gowan Jones, How to Beat the Sicilian. Thank you. Very good, Eric. That's a book that has bishop b5 stuff in it. Can the Peerts transpose to a common Sicilian dragon? It could theoretically, but it almost never does, I would say. I may be wrong about that. Let's just think. Now this is the Peerts. G6 is not the Peerts. You have to have already played that move. And to get to a dragon Sicilian, I think white would have to miss an opportunity to play something else. Because, for example, if black plays here now and white plays here, and I don't know, if black plays here, for example, then there's a couple problems. One is this, and the other problem is he can also push by. If black did nothing, sure, you could get right back to a dragon Sicilian. If white did some normal move, you could get back to a dragon Sicilian, like that, for example. I don't know. I don't know how likely that is. And the same thing with bishop e2. You could get just back to a normal Sicilian. But you can't force this, because white has d5, which is nice, or d takes c, which is... If black has to take back this way, white's much better. That g6 move does not fit with this endgame at all. White's just much, much better here. That move with tempo, knight g5, bishop f4 stopping king c7, castles queenside check is a disaster. So black would have to play queen a5 here. And what are the odds of this working? I would say low. Maybe I'll just get greedy, because there's something wrong with this. Queen d5 or something. Or bishop b5 check. Queen d5, maybe. Now we're threatening queen takes. Standard trick, by the way, against if black's not careful. Okay, so anyway, so the answer I think is no. I don't think there's ever going to be a dragon Sicilian, because once again, white's making a move here in the Peerts, and you're probably not going to be able to play c5 in response. You know, normal moves are things like bishop e2, for example, and after c5 we still have this problem of takes. Well, let's keep going. So maybe you can castle, and if white castles, try this now. I still don't particularly like that move, and I don't particularly like that move either, so I guess my answer is pretty tough to get this without causing other problems. Instead of d6 takes c5, maybe queen a5. That's what we just took a quick look at. I just don't think it works. But yeah, that's what you'd have to try to do. You'd have to somehow get something going like that. Okay, then we have the bishop b5 Sicilian Palliser. Super, yes. There's a whole bishop b5. That's the one I was thinking of. The whole bishop b5 Sicilian book has a lot on the Moscow Sicilian. You'll also find a whole bunch of videos that have information about that too. Thank you, guys. Very good. Okay, so where were we here? Oh, I just want to show you that little miniature which was sent me. His point was he has trouble directionally, and there's a game he sent to show that, which maybe I'll save for next week, because I think we don't really have time to do it right now. But the point is that he was still having trouble with kind of finding odd, mainly queen moves, I think it was a real problem. Finding moves that come from sort of the other side of the board, sort of upside down moves. And I think one way to stop surprise tactical moves, at least, is to be, and maybe I should say that it's a well-known fact that a lot of people, including me, have problems with backwards queen moves, especially along diagonals. You may all know that. It's just difficult to find them or remember them or think about them. You have to be just very consciously thinking about them, or else you have to be just a chess genius who they occur to naturally. So this is a similar problem he has. He has problems like noticing moves that are kind of in the wrong direction on the board. And maybe we can talk about that a little more next time. I tried to send him an answer, and I looked at his games, but we'll think. Maybe the rest of you have problems like this too sometimes. Okay, maybe one more. Let me see. Here's something that probably has a pretty quick answer, because we're getting towards the end of the show here. A game from a viewer. Exchange French. People are always asking about the French here. Hopefully we don't get too obsessed with it. When I'm looking at the game topics list, that isn't too bad. It's not overwhelmingly French or anything, but we do certainly have plenty about it. And black plays normal moves, and white plays this move first. It's maybe a little bit early to play that move, in my opinion. Probably a good answer to that is, since the bishop's out so fast, you might just want to play here right away to unpin it. Might be the easiest thing to do. The other thing you can do sometimes when a bishop comes out early is the same thing we always talk about. When this piece comes out there, this queen might want to come out there. And the same thing is true when black puts their bishop there. A lot of times this queen wants to come this way. We've talked about that rule quite a bit. So you could do that here. c5 has ideas of c4 and also just taking, so white might just take that. And what do we think of that position? I think black's got a lot of play for his isolated pawn. Good active play, because this came out kind of early, this bishop. So one idea would be just c5. But anyway, he's asking about this move order generally. That's why I'm asking. So he did play bishop e7. Good move. And white developed. And what was the question? The question is, oh, queen d2. Okay, so now c6. I'm thinking c6 may not be the best move in a position like this. Maybe you still want to play for other ideas. Maybe the bishop coming out there, for example, or putting the knight on d7 and swinging it over to maybe e6 or g6 or something. Maybe castles first to see what he's doing. Because c6, what happens is white plays, not that it's a terrible move, it's got to be an okay move. White plays this nice little interesting move, which is a reversed French, where exchange variation that black, system that black often plays, where you try to castle and then you just try to throw all your pawns forward. So I kind of like this for white a little bit. It may only be equal, but it's not easy to play for black, because white has a very quick plan. So what usually ends up happening in position, let me just show you a couple moves, even if they aren't like the best moves, is you can get positions like, well, a lot of times black will play bishop g4 first or something, but what black tries to do, white in the reverse position, is go like this and start attacking. And what white tries to do is make moves like this, g4, maybe f3 and g4 and h4, capture g5, h5, and attack. And my experience is that with a tempo, even with a tempo down, black usually has a pretty good chance. So here's white a tempo up. And it makes me think that I wouldn't mind being white here at all. Just my impression. I'm sure objectively black's okay, but it's not easy to play. So this is what I would try as black against this. In the game, let me see, black's set up differently with that move, trying to attack these 2 points, but of course, well, let's see. Oh, okay, so he gives him that. Boy, that's dangerous. Awfully dangerous to take that. And in fact, he didn't. So white's got very smooth development. I think I sort of like white. In fact, I like white better if he just plays for some attack on the king side here with probably this move. That looks like a very good way to play, followed by this. Maybe even just g4. You really can't afford to open that file. Threatening g5, opening a file. So you could even sacrifice a pawn with g4. If you don't like that, you can play f3 and g4. I don't like black here because black hasn't got his pawns moving yet. Black doesn't have his counterattack going yet. Typical opposite side castling. When you've got kings castled on opposite sides, usually both sides are just going to throw their pawns forward, even if it costs them pawns, against the other side's king. And white didn't really do that here. Now, as it turns out, I think white came out just fine, if I remember right. But, I mean, black came out just fine anyway. Maybe because knight f3 is a very uninspired move. Okay. Yeah, I can't really judge these exact moves. Boy, white's got a lot of development here. This is getting very dangerous. The other thing is just attacking directly looks very dangerous. With the idea of rook here. Yeah, something's gone wrong here. I think black needed to get its pieces out faster. Maybe, yeah, I like this move a lot because he's getting a piece out, but maybe here you want to just, is there a threat? I don't know, it's hard to see if that's really a threat. Maybe the easiest thing to do is this, so that if he takes this, you can just take back. I'd have to study this. I may be missing a tactic here. Black looks to me to have just enough defensive pieces on the king's side to be doing okay here, but it's close. I mean, these pawns are not advancing yet. That's a good sign. Boy, it's close though. White's almost got a killing attack, and now I'm really starting to like white. This just g4 idea looks extremely strong. Okay, so white ended up winning a pawn. So I guess white ended up getting a great game. I guess we can stop there. So the question is a very good one, because in fact black's gotten kind of move ordered into being the white side of a system that he's usually black in. This is actually a standard position, this position, with the idea of castling and attacking. And as I say, I think the best thing to do here, you might not even castle yet, the best thing to do is to get this b5 move in and knight out here quickly. But the other thing you can do is just avoid this position entirely by not playing c6 too early. And the other thing to notice concretely is that if bishop g5 this early, that's awfully early to get bishop g5, and you might want to just play c5. And I think this position is quite comfortable for black. He's not going to have much to worry about. Okay, so this is probably a pretty good time. What do we have here? Oh, cool, a lot of comments. One of my favorite minis is when Karpov played queen d1 before missing two pieces. Yeah, I can show you that game. It's, well, I hope I can. It's an old Con Sicilian, my favorite opening that I always lost with. Am I going to remember? Which line was it? It was bishop d3. The queen was on c7, okay. And it was knight h5. And the bishop was on d6. So let's see if we can reconstruct this. Okay, I'm just going to make this up. Uh-oh, if I make it up, I'm going to get it all wrong. Okay, someone help. Anybody help? Anybody remember this? Yeah, it was Christensen was white. Karpov lost. It was knight h5, queen d1, because the bishop was on d6. I used to put my bishop on d6 in the Con system. What did Karpov play though? If the bishop was here, how come queen d1 had to be played? Where was the queen coming from is the question. Where was the queen coming from that it needed to go back to d1? Anyway, the theme was that this knight went over here to attack the dark squares, to cover the dark squares, which is a standard theme with a bishop on d6. And this knight wasn't here, so let's just put that here for something. I mean, these are ridiculous moves. I'm not going to pretend they happened, obviously, but I just want to show you what the position, what kind of happened in the position. Where the queen was confuses me. You know, maybe it was, oh, it must have been over here somewhere. Yeah, it must have been over here somewhere, maybe like on this side of the board or something. This is crazy, right? This is not remotely what happened, but it's sort of the idea is what counts. The idea was that when black played this move, trying to win these dark squares, white simply moved back and there was a double attack. And there was no check, of course. But and it would simply won a piece. And Christensen, Karpov had to resign. Should be. In the old days, I could have gotten that order for you, but it's been 30 years or something, so, or 25 years. Okay, question. I've been doing this 1 hour cycle, 2 days out of 3, watching chess DVDs. I was wondering what kind of physical training regimen do top professionals use these days? I have no idea. An awful lot of them play sports. They play like football, and they play tennis, a lot of tennis. Some of them climb mountains. Some of them work out in the gym. There's some weightlifter types, but all of them do. It used to be that a lot of chess players did almost no exercise, and they were in pretty bad shape. And at the very top, that's just not true at all anymore. They're pretty much all in very good shape. Just the endurance, the physical endurance makes that necessary. So I don't know the answer, but I know that you see them all the time doing various sports, skiing and all kinds of sports activities. And I know that working out with weights, some as you say, normal GMs. I know some normal GMs that do that. That using weights is a pretty typical thing. And there's always walking. Tennis used to be very popular. Yes, I've seen tennis players, especially the old days. I saw a lot, and that's probably still true. Oh, table tennis. You know, at tournaments, there's often in these hotels, there's often table tennis, a ping pong table, and you'll see that people play. Almost, it seems like they're tremendous players. A lot of the top chess players that do travel a lot get very good at table tennis, and they are competitive with each other. So that's a good one. Swimming, basketball, tennis. There you go. Kramnik. I guess Kramnik does those three things. Swimming, of course, would be excellent, yeah. But table tennis, remember that one because I think you'd be surprised how many chess players play table tennis. It's because there's always this table tennis ping pong table at these tournaments somewhere, and they all gather and relax doing that. Foosball. Foosball is a major sport, but I don't think it helps you much physically. So, good, great question. Okay, well, this was the silliest non-example I could possibly come up with. Sorry about that. Wonder where all those pieces really were, but somehow that's kind of what happens. Um, okay, I guess that's actually a pretty good place to stop. I think that's a pretty good place because anything else would take too long to just start from scratch here. So thank you everybody for listening, and I enjoyed the chats, and I enjoyed the questions that people sent. I thought a couple of the games were a lot of fun actually. So send me games, and if you do send me games, try and focus on something that you might want explained. Even if you think you already understand it, the rest of the students would like to. The rest of the listeners probably would have a good time trying to learn something about the game at the same time. So that's the only thing I'd say. Um, quick trips. Oh, there are more things here. I missed this before. Quick trips, rook and pawn versus rook endgames. Yeah, we can look at that. I'll look at that next time. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And I'll see you next week.